What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Netflix review of the concluding chapter to Fear Street, which is Part 3, 1666. This once again brings back Leigh Janiak as the director. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like any of the videos, awesome, hit the like button, as well as commenting below any video that you watch, including this one. So, we finally come to the conclusion of this three-part trilogy, which is the Fear Street trilogy. We've seen 1994, we've seen 1978, and now we are traveling back to 1666 to learn all about Sarah Fier, to learn about where she lived and how she grew up, which is the 1666 version of Shadyside. And we basically get our resolution, our revelations, and exactly what happened to Sarah Fier, how she was put into this curse, and why she is to this day still murdering people. So we get everything we need to know to conclude this entire trilogy. And on top of that, we get a very Scarlet Letter / Crucible type story with the Salem witch trials and stuff like that, with people in that day and age who use God and religion to basically crucify and kill people because they thought they were witches or they thought they were practicing witchcraft and stuff like that. So this segment, this part 3, really truly shows that kind of old school, back in the day, back in the early days of the settlements of America and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. And on top of that, the main actors and actresses that you've seen throughout this entire trilogy played the townsfolk, including Keira Madeira, who plays Sarah Fier. So we see characters that we recognize, but they're playing completely different characters. They're playing some of the townsfolk who are very fearful. One of the characters I think is the one that has the bag over his head. He is the kind of preacher and stuff like that. And it gives us a very interesting kind of dichotomy on using the same characters to tell this story, and then eventually comes to this conclusion, which I won't spoil for you. But as with the first two parts of this trilogy, it's something that I've actually grown to really respect and enjoy. I think Leigh Janiak has done a really nice job of taking material that could be really goofy and really over the top and just kind of made it unique, made it horrifying, made it unsettling, and given us a very teen tropey type story with a very hard R type rating. And with 1666, Leigh Janiak continues that hard R rating with a very interesting story, giving us that really cool back in the time frames of the Salem witch trials. And though it isn't as gory as I say, I think it's like part 1, it does have its moments where it really feels like you're watching some really brutal stuff, and it's more of a kind of unsettling feel than it is of the eyes and of the kind of heart and stuff like that. But it still has its brutal moments. It's still very, very violent. It leads to a very interesting conclusion to the entire trilogy, and it's a series that I just think is a winner. I would give this entire series a 9 out of 10, just for the simple fact that it's just a really compelling way to do a trilogy, and everybody does a really nice job in the entire trilogy. And it's the same thing here as the revelations start happening, as the characters start kind of putting the pieces together, as that puzzle finally finishes. I really think everybody does a really nice job of setting those puzzle pieces, to finally complete the puzzle. And it just leads to places I wasn't expecting. It's not the best in the trilogy. I'm still going to go with the first one because of what that mood and what that setting was really kind of interesting and unique. And each story after that, I think, is a little bit lesser and lesser because you're learning more about the story. But the way it unfolds, the fact that you're going farther and farther back in time, is a really fascinating way to tell a story. And that's why I really think this 1666 is still an entertaining, kind of fun horror romp, I guess you could say. But the one complaint that I had about the first two parts is the needle drops, and a lot of people have problems with that. This movie, or this version, doesn't have that because, one, it's set in 1666, so there's no reason to have needle drops and stuff like that. And on top of that, you have, because this is Shadyside and, 300 years prior, everything is kind of subdued. It's very gray and, nasty and over cloudy skies and stuff like that. There's 4 or 5 buildings. There's a few houses. There's a church and stuff like that. There's the wilderness of Shadyside itself, but it's basically a very toned down, a very smallish type movie where it really feels self-contained. And even though it's telling a bigger whole of the entire story, it really feels like you're getting a really interesting look into a back history where, like I said, once again, people were very fearful of witchcraft and so on and so forth. So, but with that said, there's not really much else to talk about with this movie without spoiling it, and I'm not going to spoil it, but like I said, I gave it a 9 out of 10. The nitpicks are the needle drops and stuff like that. There's a few moments where I think the character development's a little wonky, but overall, I think it's a great concluding chapter to a 3-part trilogy, and I think R.L. Stine and Netflix and Lee Janiak and the actors and screenwriters, I think they should be proud of what they did, and I pray that there's a second part or a second season to this Fear Street where we get a whole new story, we get a whole new concept, and I think Netflix should continue this, because if they go in the route they're going to have some classic material on their hands. And once again, it's a really good piece of material, has some fun kills, some fun gore, and really feels like they did something truly special here. So 100% recommend. I think it's a great capper to the end of the trilogy, and I'll be interested to see where it goes from here if they end up continuing Fear Street. So, but with that said, that's going to be my take on Fear Street Part 3, 1666. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What do you think of this concluding chapter? What do you think of the overall trilogy? All that good stuff. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.